Welcome to this APM Fundamentals of Project Management podcast from Parallel Projects Training. You should be using this in conjunction with our printed study guide, video lectures, and potentially a tutor-led course. For more information, please visit parallelprojectstraining.com.
Hello, my name's Paul Neighbour and with me is John Bolton. Hello, John.
Hello again.
And we're working through the APM Project Management Fundamentals course, and we've got to life cycles and why we have a life cycle. So I expect we need to talk about why, the principles of life cycles, why we have a life cycle, and then we just need to dip into the APM's particular life cycle first.
It's a funny old phrase, life cycle, but I think plants and animals have life cycles. You're sort of born, you live, and you die.
Yes, one of our trainers talks about the human life cycle.
Yes,
yes, you're sort of born, you grow up, you teenage, you mature, and then you fade away.
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful not to stretch the analogy too far, but
yes.
Yeah.
So projects are the same, but why? So what's the benefit? So a life cycle is a way of breaking the project into a number of stages, and so there's a clear roadmap for the development of the project with usually some gates or some reviews that we're going to do throughout the life cycle. So, but why do we do that? What's the most organisations?
It's a fundamental way of planning, isn't it? It's if you've got a big job to do, you've got a lot of got a big piece of work to do. You break it up into chunks.
Yes,
and that's all there is to it, really. And but to give it ever, you can't break it up into little chunks, so you've broken it up into big chunks.
Yeah,
that's the argument.
But I think life cycles, even small projects, it's useful to have a simple life cycle, identify the requirements and deliver the requirements, then review what you've done.
That's right. So you plan, you do, and you stop.
Yes, basically. But it gives an opportunity gives some structure, and it gives an opportunity for people to buy into them, the sponsor or the governing body to...
It gives, it's quite brave to say this is what I'm doing and when I'm doing it at this level.
Yeah. Because
as soon as you do that, people will go, well, why haven't you done it then?
Yeah.
So putting a life cycle on a bit of paper is quite a bold move. But yeah, it is the first start, and it does get that communication across to people to say, this is when all these things are going to happen.
Yeah. So the APM break their life cycle into 4 phases, typically.
We should point out that a life cycle, although we're talking about when things happen, life cycles are not plans.
It's a high-level
It's a very high-level framework
for the project.
within which you work. And go on, Paul, you're going to talk about the different bits of it. Right?
Yeah, so the APM pretty much, it's the simplest one you've probably seen, actually. There are more complex ones in the world, but it starts off with a concept phase. So the concept leads into the preparation of a business case. So quite often in lots of organisations say, show me the business case before they'll approve.
And what's the business case?
It's a mechanism to authorise the project. It approves the funding for the project.
Approves the funding?
Approves.
No, the sponsor approves.
Well, it's the mechanism to get that approved.
The business case describes it, doesn't it?
Yes.
So it describes what we're trying to do, how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, what might go wrong.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And so that comes out at the end of the first phase.
Concept phase. And then definition is planning. So once the organisation said, yes, I'm happy for you to proceed with that project, definition is then planning the detail of how we're going to deliver that project. And that leads to a plan, a project management plan. And then development is the delivery of that plan. And then at the end, we have a quite important phase, it's often forgotten, called handover and close, where you then hand over what you've completed to the business as usual. And then that business as usual will then do a review, or you'll do a review with that team to say, have we got those benefits?
That's right.
So concept, definition, development, and handover and closeout. And typically we put gates between each of those key phases. And
the gates are sort of points where you can stop, aren't they?
Points to get buy-in, really, from the sponsor and the organisation is responsible for
take stock of where you're at.
Yeah, saying, well, if I give you these if this project gives you these benefits for this cost and this risk, are you happy to invest?
So during definition, just remind me, what are we doing during definition?
Planning.
Planning what?
Well, lots of planning. Thinking about how you're going to get external third-party contractors in, preparing the schedule, refining the estimates.
Okay, so you're not defining the product of the project, what you're trying to produce. You're defining how you're going to produce it.
Probably both. Probably both.
A bit of both.
Usually in the business case, you'll say our preferred option is, and that'll describe that at quite a high level, but that's not enough detail to deliver.
So give me an example then. So during concept, we say we're going to build a bridge.
Well, let's talk about, my favourite is building a house.
Okay, go on then.
So if you want to develop a new house,
Yeah.
so you might retire and you might have a little bit of money and you might say, I'm going to become a property developer. So you find a bit of land. Well, during the concept phase, you're going to have to write a business case to get funding off the bank, assuming you haven't got £1 million, but get funding off the bank. And they're going to say, well, what do you want funding for? So you have to say, well, I'm going to build a house. So you're going to build one house, a 4-bed house, a 3-bed house, a block of flats. So during the concept phase, we say, well, actually, what we're going to do is 3 small houses, 3-bed houses. But that's not enough detail to then go and... It's enough
Build them.
detail for you to go to the bank and say, well, that looks like a reasonable risk. But it's not enough detail to build them. Once I know what my preferred option is, I can get builders involved. They can give me quotes. I can do some site surveys. I can explore my planning application. And that's all the detail is what goes on during definition. But you can't do all that work, can't employ an architect, for instance, until you actually know the bank's going to, in principle, lend you the money.
So that's concept.
So, concept is getting approval in
Getting
principle.
approved in principle.
through the
So
business
if I was
case.
going to, let's say if I was going to build, I don't know, I know I'm going to build 3 houses. During definition,
Yes.
what I'm doing is I'm producing a plan as to how I can build those
Yes.
3 houses.
Yes.
I'm doing some more design on those houses, enough to know more about how much they're going to cost and everything.
That's right.
But during development is when you actually start building them.
That's right.
So definition is about defining a little bit more about the product, i.e. the house,
Yes.
but also a lot more about how you're actually going to do it.
Yes. Well, you want cost certainty, don't you?
Yeah.
Before you get to the end
does
of
that mean?
definition, you want to be certain what the cost is going to be as you become.
You're never certain, are you?
Yes, but as certain as you can be.
A lot
Within
more certain.
reasonable. Yes. Yes. Well, so people talk. We'll do the estimating funnel later, but we want to remove as much risk as is reasonable to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Before we
And
sign any.
the point
contracts.
about that, though, is that the life cycle, people say, why do you bother with life cycle? It's because you do little bits at a time.
Yes.
So you don't go and invest a load of money building a house only to realise it was the wrong house.
Yes, exactly.
So the reason you have the fundamental reason you have a life cycle is to allow you to think about things at the right time in the right way.
Yes, it's a structured
so
way
you
of working.
progress in a nice structured manner.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do it all in concept. So I could spend £10,000 on getting an architect to do all the detailed design. I could get all the things to quote for it. But then when I go to the bank manager says, well, that's not...
Or you don't get planning permission.
You don't
or
get
something
planning
like that.
permission.
Yeah.
And then you've wasted all that money. So what you do is you try and do a sort of like...
Break it into chunks.
Breaking it into chunks. So you spend an appropriate amount on design and concept.
Yeah, and handover and closeout is when you push, or you not push, you transfer. Sometimes you do. But remember, if you the first podcast talked about projects and they finish,
Yes.
and then you get business as usual.
Yes.
Well, what handover and closeout is the transference of it from the project team to the
Yes.
operational team.
Yes.
So when the people have finished building the house,
Yes.
all the guys in the high-vis jackets and welly boots have gone,
Yes.
they hand it over to the people that are going to live in it.
Yes.
They're effectively
Yes.
the users, aren't they?
Yes.
So they've got to make it work. You know?
Yes. Or the tenants or
Or the tenants,
whatever.
or if
yeah.
it's a block of flats or a bridge or whatever it is,
That's
or
right,
aeroplane.
So that needs careful planning too, because quite often project managers aren't the best at...
In software, handover takes quite a while because
Yeah.
you tend to, you have sort of you have testing, acceptance testing, then you hand it over, then people find bugs and you're fixing them, and it doesn't do. And then you have modifications, and so handover can take quite a long time. But it's just the end of that. At some point, the project finishes.
So that life cycle gives us structure, gives us a framework to work on, defines the sort of high-level plan, but also gets governance buy-in, really,
Yes,
by
that's right.
going to the
And
bank.
it's a good way of making sure you've got resources secured.
Yeah,
Money is a resource,
yeah,
but people are also.
yeah. Good, thank you, John.
Pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it informative. To order a study guide, video lectures, or a tutor-led course to go with this podcast, please visit parallelprojecttraining.com.